Hey, welcome back. It's another Friday. I'm here with Alan Cutting, Believer's Journey, and we have another questions on the fly. Shemaya, I'm here again. How you doing, Alan?
I'm doing good. How about yourself?
All's well, man. I don't know about the Cowboys yesterday, but it's gonna be all right. We'll be fine. So today's topic is going to be why asking questions isn't a sign of weak faith. And just like we always do, it's going to be about five questions. So
Okay.
getting right to it, first one that's up is how do you tell the difference between a question that seeks truth and a question that avoids it?
Well, this is probably very subjective because different people are going to have all these different answers. But I really believe it's the sincerity of the question. It's the sincerity of your heart. What are you looking for? Uh, a lot of people ask questions when they're trying to get out of something, you know, or when they're trying to avoid something, when they're trying to get something that maybe they shouldn't, but they can get close to the line and cross it without getting in trouble, kind of thing. We do that in life. I mean, that's just part of human nature. And being a believer isn't any different. A lot of believers do the same thing. We just want to do that. I believe that there are scriptures, though, like in Ephesians 6, it says, serve wholeheartedly as if you were serving the Lord and not people. And one of the problems we have when we're asking questions, a lot of people ask questions because of the way we want to serve. We want to serve other people or be noticed by other people. And I wonder if, it's a heart issue. I really believe almost everything we do is a heart issue. Jesus tend to deal with that with people as a heart issue. When we had the pandemic, everyone was talking about ask God to heal our land, ask God to heal our land. It was over and over again. I saw this all over all kinds of social media and everywhere. And I would speak up. In fact, I did this on my program. I spoke up about that in Second Chronicles 7:14. It says, if my people are called by my name, humble themselves. See, back to heart issue again. Pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways. He's not talking about the country now. He's talking about his people. Then I will hear from heaven and forgive their sin and heal their land. What's interesting is the 15th verse, the verse right after that, which nobody reads, right? I mean, we all read the big important verse. It says, now my eyes will be open and my ears attentive to prayer made in this place. So it answers a question, when we ask questions or when we're praying, what are we doing? Well, we need to seek him, humble ourselves, get our heart right, and then he'll answer our prayers. And then when we are asking questions, are we really asking questions for our own, welfare, what we want to do, where we want to go? Or are we asking them for what we want to do in honoring God so that God will honor us?
I think the heart point is really fitting because no matter what happens, the way the heart is the way it is, and you can't fluff it. It is what it is. Eventually, sooner or later, the heart is going to reveal its true intention. So,
Yeah.
my next question to follow up with that is, when you think about unanswered questions, that's something that culture, everyday people, we all have it. From when you think about wars, when you think about politics, when you think about X, Y, and Z topics. What role does unanswered questions play in shaping a deeper relationship with God?
Um, Let me share with you something that's from my past. When I was a teenager and when I was younger, when I was a kid and into teenage years, I was really into sports. And I played baseball, I played football, I was in track, cross country, did running, long jump, the whole field events. But I was and I was really good at it. I was good in sports. It was one of the things that was easy for me. But when I was 8 years old, I got hit in a baseball bat over the head with an adult. And I was in a hospital, and I had big, my whole face was black and blue. And it didn't affect me other than that. But when I was 17, at the very end of football season in my senior year, I started having these little twitches on the field even. But I was at his friend's house, and I had a massive grand mal seizure. And I didn't understand why. I would ask my pastor, I would ask other ministers, spiritual leaders, why would God do this? Of course, their answer is, well, God's not God's will that this would happen, or why would he allow this? Well, it's not maybe it's his permissive will. I mean, really answers that were stupid, that really bothered me. And I got a scholarship or a grant to go to Point Loma University. And so I went ahead and went, even though I was angry with God about all of this. Now, I have to tell you that even though I was a believer, I was not really living the way I should have. So I was just what teenagers do sometimes, especially when you're 17, 18 years old. So I went there, and I was listening to their revival service, and I got really upset. And I walked in, talked to the counselor, chaplain of the school. His name was Reuben Welch. And I asked him, why would God do this? And I explained the whole thing. And he literally took off his glasses, and he set them down, and he started to cry. And he said, I don't know. That was the most honest answer I got from anybody. I don't know. Then he explained to me, my daughter is 27 years old. She's mentally retarded, and she lives in a convalescent home, and I don't know why. I mean, I just broke down, like, who am I complaining about something that's obviously less than that? So I think that in that, he taught me about asking God instead of this why. He started asking God about, find out what he wants you to do with your life. Maybe he wants you to use this for your ministry in life and so forth. And he changed my direction of how I'm focusing on the problem and how I'm focusing on directing myself to God. I don't know how else to answer that, but that.
I like it because it goes right into my next question. When you think about prayers versus our questions. So in prayers, what does that even, how does that differ from each other? Because when we have questions, it could be everyday questions. Why did this happen? Or why did that happen? But with prayers, it could be like a request that we made, but we don't feel we heard back. Kind of touch on that.
So I think that when people are asking questions, they're searching for something. I mean, it's just obvious, why this, or can I go here, or can I have that, or what do we do? We're searching for answers for something. That's really not the way prayer is supposed to work. I mean, we treat it that way. God, give me this. God, can I have that? God, I want to be rich. God, where's my Mercedes? That's kind of what we do. We talk to God the way we ask other people questions. So we it's like our sounding board. And questions are just searching. We're searching for stuff. We're searching for life. We're searching for a way to live in a world that we may or may not understand, or we want more of life, a more abundant life, as Jesus said he would give us. But in prayer, it's a combination. It's a combination of asking. We're asking God for things, not just, hey, can I have more food, more money, more of this? But we're asking for other things. God, I'd like good health, spiritual health, mental, emotional health. So we're asking for things. We're also showering him and showing him honor. God, you are amazing. You are awesome. You are just, I love you so much. So we're also giving him our heart, and we're telling him how we feel about him. I mean, think about it this way. You have a relationship with somebody, a marriage, a boyfriend or girlfriend. Well, what do you do to show them that you care? You tell them, hey, you look really good looking, or hey, you look really hot, or really, I really appreciate the way you did this or treat me or whatever. So we give them this affirmation. Well, this is something that God wants too. If you look at the prayers in the Bible, like from Hezekiah, he starts off this whole prayer in Isaiah that the Assyrians were going to conquer Judah, and they had already conquered Israel. And so he got this really nasty letter that they were going to come off and tear him apart. He takes the letter, shows God, and he starts off with, God, you are an amazing God. You created all things. And he just gives us all this adoration. Most of us say, God, help me, but he starts off with telling him how amazing he is. And he goes on with this, and then he gets down to how these people that are going to conquer him, how they serve other gods that aren't really gods. They're just, sticks and stones, and they've been doing terrible things. So, by the way, can you, take care of them? And he ends the prayer. So I think that we need to look at all factors. We need to thank him. God, thank you so much for even recognizing the fact that you care about me. Thank you for sending your son. Thank you, Jesus, for doing all that you do. I mean, I really wouldn't, if I had a choice, I wouldn't want Jesus to go to the cross and do all those things. But without that, we wouldn't have life today that we know. So we thank him for that. We proclaim how awesome God is. He's created all things. I mean, so prayer is much more than questioning. And so I really think we need to kind of look at it as a separate deal. I question leaders. I question people. I question this and that. When I question God, it's usually not about why anymore. I've learned that, but it's different. So I guess it's a matter of growing and maturing.
Once again, watching the Believer's Journey, Questions on the Fly, Alan Cuddy and me. Topic is why these questions isn't a sign of weak faith. This question, I think, is going to be really good. And it is, I mean, I know all of them were okay, but I really like this one because it's about humility and asking honest questions. How does asking honest questions help us stay humble? Because when we are in our walk with God, at some point in time, it needs to stop being about us.
I don't know if asking honest questions actually creates humility in us. I think when we are talking to God and asking him questions, I think it comes from, back when I said earlier, it comes from the heart. I mean, if your heart is pure, the questions you're going to ask are going to be humble questions. If you're out for yourself, wanting to get for your own gain, then your questions aren't necessarily going to be creating anything for humility. You're only looking for your own deeds or your own wants in life. So I'm not sure if asking questions is really what creates humility. I think it's back to our heart needs to be right. It's interesting. I mentioned this the other day about Jeremiah 29:11. I'm trying to write, 11. How God knows our plans, et cetera, et cetera. But if you read that whole passage, it's really cool. But Jeremiah 29:13 says something really cool. It says, "You will seek me and find me, and when you seek me you'll find me when you seek me with your whole heart." And so it's a matter of are we really seeking him? Are we just seeking for our own gain? If we're seeking him, humility is already in place. Now, humility will grow, and we can become more mature, and we become more humble. But I really believe it's back to, the heart. David said something really cool in Psalm 51. He said, "Search my heart, cleanse me of all my wrongdoing." And that will help us become humble. But it's not about seeking him. I mean, asking questions as much as it is about asking him to make a change in your life, to build in your life, become like Jesus, for example. I pray all the time that, I want to become like Jesus. And so one of the biggest things that I pray about and I search for is that God would be pleased with me. I used to always want my grandmother to be pleased with me, that I would bless her. And I think if we're walking in life with the idea that we want to, with all our heart, bless God, honor God, have Him be proud of me, that's really where we're at. But it comes from a heart, I think, that's outside of just asking questions. Even in Deuteronomy, in chapter 4 or something, it says something about from where we seek the Lord, and I'm paraphrasing this, where we seek the Lord and we'll find Him. And if you seek Him with all your heart, you'll find Him if you seek with all your heart and all your soul. So again, it's back to your heart. And the Bible teaches that. I mean, there are more scriptures, I'm sure, about that. In Hebrews, without faith, it's impossible to please God. But it talks about coming to Him and believing in Him who exists, and we earnestly seek Him. That comes from a heart already set in place, in motion. I think that the humility comes as we build our sights on Him and focus on Him. I tell people all the time, He needs to be central and center focus of your life. When He is center focus of your life, then all the things in your life become more attuned to Him. The humility happens because of that, because of our focus, because of our seeking Him. The questions are just, help us maybe move that along. But it's back to where is the intent of my heart. And that's what God looks at, how He looks at us. He looks at us at the intent of our heart.
Yeah, I mean, I think asking honest questions shows that you're not going with a routine mindset, meaning you're not just going with the flow. You're not just going with what everyone's saying, what their opinions are. I think an honest question is someone who's seeking truth. But I get what you're saying.
But I can ask a question. It's an honest question and be very misguided and misdirected in the question. For example, I told you earlier, when I was asking God, why did you do this? Or why did this happen? What's going on here? I didn't do anything. My question was misguided. Instead of asking, why did this happen? Why did you do this? I should have been asking, how can I use what's happened to me to honor you? So sometimes it's not about the question, the honest question. It's about, again, the heart. What do I want to do in serving Him? When I see it's my life is to honor Him and serve Him, my questions change. They can both be honest questions, but which question is going to honor Him and which question is going to help me live in a way that serves and honors Him? You see?
All right. And that will lead to my next question. What does it really mean to live by faith when life looks nothing like you planned?
Well, I don't think it ever looks like it's something we planned, at least for most of us. That's a really hard question because, I think when we look at what God has for us, God wants us to honor Him, serve Him, live this life that's gone from point A to point B, which is directly to Him and with Him and all through Him. But what happens is we tarry off, we venture off, we trip and fall, we go down the paths that we want to. It changes the direction, and He's getting us back on place, back on course. So it's really hard. I mean, look, and nothing, even if we're trying to do our best, but for example, Old Testament, I love the stories in the Old Testament because we can find these stories all over. King David was just a shepherd boy, maybe 12 or 13 when he was anointed king. Okay. But he didn't become king for almost 20 years later. Instead, he was running for his life from the king that was already there. And he wouldn't take out the king that was there because he felt that was God's anointed king. So he didn't want to mess with that. Let God take care of that. But obviously, he was a shepherd boy, now anointed to be king. He didn't become king for several years later, decades later, and then he became king. And he was one of the greatest kings Israel ever had. Same thing with Joseph. Here's Joseph. He's a kid. He's a brother. There's 12 kids. He's one of 12 boys. And unfortunately, he's his father's favorites. His father, dotes on him and makes let everybody know that he's his favorite, which makes all his brothers hate him. And so he's sold into slavery. Well, nobody, he's really wants to follow God. You can tell that because when he gets his dreams, when he's a kid, he talks about the dreams, and you know that he wants to follow God. He's sold into slavery, and he serves God while he's serving as a slave. And they notice that he's serving God. They notice that God blesses him, and they put him in high positions, but he's still a slave. And then, Potiphar's wife decides to, cry rape when it wasn't really true, and he goes to jail for several years. And, but in jail, they notice that something's about him, that God honors him in the jail. I mean, he does something and things go that way. So even the warden puts him in charge, but he's still a prisoner. He's still a slave. And so what happens is, here's this kid that goes into slavery, that goes into jail. None of it is his fault. None of it. But he's living by faith. And finally, after 13 years of slavery and prison, he now goes in front of the Pharaoh, because the Pharaoh has these dreams. He goes ahead and translates the dreams, and Pharaoh puts him in charge of the whole country to do what they need to do to stay away from the famine. And then his family comes to Egypt and so forth. But that took him many years before that ever happened. But I think if we're faithful to God, no matter what our situation is, if we're faithful to him, he will bless us. And we find that true in David's case. We find that true in Joseph's case. You can look at Daniel. It was true in Daniel's case. I mean, we can go on and on and on and on. And we can see the stories how when people were faithful, God blessed them. When they weren't faithful, there was no blessing. Look at Saul. He was not faithful to God, and God did not bless him. So I think that we see this. Living by faith has the undertone of obedience. And we can say that these guys were obedient. And if we're obedient to him and living in an active lifestyle with God, look at Noah. Here, Noah, I'm sure he's living by faith. He's a righteous guy. And God says, you're going to build a boat. It's going to take 100 years. It's a long time. And he's 500 years old. So basically, he's changed his course of life, but he was faithful, and that's why. And then because of that, we have a whole change of life and a whole change of the history of mankind. And I believe that if we are faithful to him, even though life doesn't look like where we want to be or where we should be, he will bless us. And I think that is huge.
Once again, watching The Believer's Journey, go to his website, thebelieversjourney.net, the host, Alan Cutting. And this is today's Questions on the Fly. I want to say the reason why I picked the title, Why Asking Questions Isn't a Sign of Weak Faith, it's because all humans have questions. And what I got from today is that if you kind of flip the script and surrender to what God wants you to know, then that will answer most of your questions. And the ones that you don't understand, you just trust the process because he's bigger than you.
Definitely. And I think what we do as human type people, we tend to go to our pastors and ministers and spiritual leaders thinking, well, they're the pastor or they're the minister, they should have the answers. And when they don't, or when they give us a stupid answer, or when they ignore us or say things like, well, you should already know this, we feel put down. That makes it hard. That's when it's really time to look to God and go straight to the scriptures. I believe the scriptures have answers for us that we don't realize, but they're there. And we tend to go to people, and a lot of people don't have the answers, but I really do believe the scriptures have the answers. God has the answers. And if we go directly to him, we will find most of what we need, if not everything we need.
That was a good one. I like this one. I like
Okay.
that this wasn't an easy like 1, 2, 3 and we're out. This was a really nice discussion.
Well, no, and it's hard because it's subjective and it's not all Bible. Now you have to come up with other things. So,
Yeah, well, I'm sure people are going to appreciate this one. So can't wait for the next one. Until then, go to thebelieversjourney.net, where we really officially ask hard questions. So once again, I want to say to you, Alan, thanks for your time, man.
thank you.